The GT by Citroen. Now, this is a story that blends video games, avant garde French design, and one of the strangest hypercar what ifs of the 21st century. This is the tale of a car that wasn't supposed to exist, and yet somehow gloriously came to life briefly, and then left behind a vapor trail of carbon fiber, concept art, and broken dreams. Join me in taking a look at the GT by Citroen, and we'll test the vehicle out, look at the story of it, and bring it over to Tokyo to see how it ranks against other cars we've previously tested. In 2008, the world got its first look at the GT by Citroen at the Paris Motor Show, a jaw-dropping, low-slung jet fighter-shaped supercar that nobody expected from Citroen, a company known more for quirky hatchbacks and hydropneumatic suspension than something like a high-speed supercar. But to understand where this car came from, you have to look to Japan, not France. The story begins with Kazunori Yamaguchi, the legendary creator of Gran Turismo video games for the PlayStation series. He had long treated Gran Turismo like a motorsport museum with painstakingly rendered real cars, but in the mid-2000s he started thinking, what if we went the other way? What if a car was born inside Gran Turismo and then turned into a real-life vehicle? He approached Citroen with the idea of designing a digital-only hypercar exclusively for his game, a wild, no-limits fantasy car that could exist in the Gran Turismo universe. Citroen surprisingly said yes, but what came next blew everyone away. The car that Citroen designers created, led by Takumi Yamamoto, a Japanese designer working in the Citroen Paris studio, was absolutely insane. The GT by Citroen was nearly 5 meters long, ultra low, and had scissor doors, carbon fiber bodywork, and an overall shape that looked more like a spaceship than a car. The design combined French futurism with smooth curves and dramatic proportions, motorsport aggression with gaping vents and a massive rear diffuser, as well as an active wing, and digital fantasy because it was originally intended to only exist in the Gran Turismo world. In the game, the car was powered by a fuel cell and 4 electric motors, one for each wheel, a bold, forward-thinking design befitting its virtual DNA. But when Citroen saw the public reaction at the Paris show in 2008, being stunned journalists, flashing cameras, and a crowd at the stand every single day, someone at the top replied, "Screw it, let's make it real." To bring the GT by Citroen into the physical world, Citroen built a fully functional concept car. Not just a rolling shell, but a drivable prototype. But since the electric drivetrain didn't exist in a usable road form at the time, they dropped in something a little more old school and insane. A Ford V8 mid-mounted rear-wheel drive with a sequential gearbox and a soundtrack that would melt the Alpine glaciers. The car would appear at events like the Goodwood Festival of Speed, where it roared up the hill to stunned applause, and the plan, at least briefly, was to build a limited production of 6 cars, each priced around £1.3 million or $2.1 million. But that's where the dream ran into reality. There are a few reasons the GT by Citroen never made it past the single prototype. 1. Citroen had no performance division. There was no infrastructure to build or service hypercars. 2. The financial crisis hit in 2008 and 2009, and launching a €1 million exotic from a mainstream automaker suddenly looked tone-deaf. And 3. Internal politics and priorities shifted within the company. The PSA group needed to focus on volume, not vanity. In the end, Citroen pulled the plug. The prototype remained a one-off, although some claim a second shell was built, but it never saw public use. The car just kind of faded into myth, popping up occasionally at events, but never going into mass production. Today, the GT by Citroen remains one of the great what-if cars of the 21st century. It was a dream made real, a halo car from a brand that wasn't looking for a halo. a stunning symbol of what happens when creativity outruns corporate caution, just long enough to leave its mark. It's one of the few concept cars ever to go from PlayStation to prototype, and its DNA lives on in the way car companies now use digital platforms for design and buzz. In many ways, it predicted the future before the world was ready for it. The GT Citroen was a ghost, a brilliant, fire-breathing, carbon-clad ghost that escaped the simulation just for a moment. And in that moment, it reminded everyone that even the most sensible car maker can have a dreamer's heart, and sometimes the wildest machines come not from racing, but from pixels and passion. If you've made it this far, please like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future content, including finishing up these invitational cars. But for now, let's bring this thing over to Tokyo and see how it handles against the other vehicles we've already tested. The GT by Citroen is another invitational car, so if you get the invitation and have the opportunity to buy one, I suggest you pick one up. It can be purchased for 1 million credits, which is something you can grind, and it takes about less than an hour if you do those high yield races. And this is the only Citroen vehicle in that invitation, and you have 30 days to do it, so it's not something that's going to be all that stressful. The performance points end up at 710 fully built out, so it's actually a class below all the rest of the invitational cars in that 700 area, where the rest are all over 800. And you can run it on 700 series races, but it is somewhat limited. The horsepower ends up at 657, where the torque is at 423, but it is quite a heavy vehicle at 3,197 pounds after weight reduction. There is no wide body option, so what you have is the vehicle when it's first built, and so far there are no engine swaps available on these cars as well. So I usually pick up 2 just in case they start adding some of those things so I can keep the variance. We ended up topping out on this track at 188 miles per hour, which is a little disappointing for the performance points that this thing is pulling around. All of these cars seem to be pretty rough on fuel as well, and this is on the slightly better side where we were able to get 3 laps before having to pit, but you're going to be realistically pitting on that 3rd lap. The tire wear was at 25% to the front and 40% to the rear, so not too bad, especially knowing that fuel is going to be your limiting factor. This car does feel less refined than the other cars, and it doesn't seem to handle as well. Plus you got that A-pillar that's right in your way if you're playing in VR. But it's an art piece. It's kind of like something designed by Rene Magritte, so if it ends up on a wall, don't get too upset. We ended up crossing the line at 2 minutes 1 second, .437, and that puts it in 104th place behind the Mazda RX-7 GTX FC and just in front of the Mercedes 190E. So it's pretty far down there for an invitation-only car, but you're getting your hands on exclusivity, not performance. Thank you guys so much for watching, and stay clean out there.